Wholeness and balanced vibration to everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Universal Current Show. Today is Sunday, October 16th, and I'm your host, Sevan, and we're going to be picking up on today's show, which is titled Memory Masters, the Origins of Cairo and the Mars 5 Deep Secret of Egypt and the Zulu. Quite an expansive title, and actually today we're going to be enhancing the experience here on this planet. Because of the vast amount of information that we've actually accumulated through experience and through learning up until this point, it's very easy for us at this point to understand what we're going to need to be doing in the future as time continues. And so that is the tune of today's show, is exactly what do we do now that we found all of this information out. The first thing that I wanted to start with today is I'm going to work on today going a little slower, because the information that I'm going to be bringing is really about how we can connect to ourselves and the individuals that are around us and this planet and this universe, and for what it truly is. Because there's a lot of information that is always coming across, and that information comes across so fast at times that we don't think exactly about what we're hearing. It's even started to come across so fast that we don't even think about what we're experiencing, because at large there are things going on in our reality and we can prove that they're being done, but sometimes we don't think exactly about what the ramifications of that really are. So I want to let everyone know on this line that you're on an adventure, and that what you have an opportunity to do is you have an opportunity to expand yourself into this higher level of consciousness that's available for you now. If you choose not to do that, the only thing that tends to happen to the individual is a reincarnation recycling process, because the universe does not waste souls. The universe is very good at recycling. It made most people from dirt. So with that, I wanted to talk about very briefly that this term illusion that is used at times, and when people generally hear that word illusion, they think about how it's fake. And that's generally the next thing that a person comes to. When you say illusion, a person says something's fake. And this becomes incorrect, because if you look at incorrect way to think, because if you look at the word illusion, what it says is the illu, Zion. So the illu's Zion, or the illu's ion. And ion, of course, is the unit of energy, and that's being touted about the dimension. So it becomes easy for us to see that if we don't accept the illusion as being something, then we accept our lives as being nothing. Because since people say, well, we're living in the illusion, then if you think the illusion is fake, that means you're living in something fake and being fake. All of it would lead to basically a serious nightmare in the mind after a while. It's like, am I fake? Am I real? Am I here? Am I not real? What really exists? How do I get there? So this starts to get the mind really going in an uneasy direction. So this starts because this word illusion should be looked at in a way where an illusion is something that has been designed by illusionists. And we're all illusionists, because if you notice your dream, you create a large part of your dream. So you're capable of creating this quote-unquote illusion. So the reality becomes is that we should not look at the word illusion as just something that is fake, but something that can be created by ourselves and others around us. So let's take it from there. Now, if you notice, in the ancient times, they had a word for the illusion as we're calling it now, and that was called Maya. And if you notice very closely, you'll see how words start to appear, and old words start to disappear, because we changed the word Maya to illusion, but to the ancients, the illusion as we're calling it was called Maya. And the reason that came about is because Maya, which is a two-syllable word, anytime you see two syllables, you know you always have two beings there that you can track down through etymology and through Kabbalah. So you have Ma and Ya. So we, of course, already discovered that Ma is definitely related to the womb. I think you discovered that when you came into this world. And Ya is related to the fire, or Jah, or the God of the Old Testament, the fire gods, and Yod, etc., the sons of fire. So what you're looking at here is you're looking at a connection between Ma and Ya created what we're calling an illusion. But in this, now from here forth, we're just going to call it Maya. So the unity of a masculine principle and a feminine principle, i.e. fire and water, created steam. And notice steam at times has a lot to do with the word illusion, because they call it smoke and mirrors, or smoke. And so the reason that is because the essence that comes from the unity between the mother and the father equals us, and we become the third principle. That also makes us the third planet. So what I'm going to walk through today is I'm going to walk through all of the important parts of mythology. We're going to treat today mythology, religion, etc. as a buffet, walking through it for its original principles while leaving back all of the things that were added to fit the political agendas of kings and magicians and different things which has come about in our age. So originally this Maya was developed as a training ground by the ancestors, a place of experience in which mistakes were allowed and mistakes could be made. So it's literally the gesture of the ancestors by saying, let us see how they do in the illusion. Let us see how they do in Maya. Because the big part of the higher part of things, what we call the outside of the circle, is organization. Planets don't collide together. There's no fights and arguments, etc. And so there is a training procedure that has to happen before that to new beings, because they have to understand how to operate in that order and the benefit of being in order. Because remember, here, as you can see in the world, as the spirit of the revelator goes across the land, many people are not in order. It's just what's happening. So until order is gained within, then one will always be in a reality of disorder. So when you ask yourself, did our ancestors, did our parents make this reality? Did they produce this reality? The answer to that is 100%. That things beget other things. There's a cause and an effect. So the reality that we're living in right now is because our parents and our ancestors did things to bring it about. I, for a fact, know now that this is exactly what it appears to be. A training module for multiple levels of experience and to see how you would behave and act if you were presented with those choices and experiences. So this is what we're here for today, to get this very clear about what exactly our reason for being here is and how to get to the cosmos, which is the highest level. The highest level that you can reach is cosmic. But you don't go cosmic overnight. In fact, you don't want to go cosmic overnight, because it means all the experiences between you and the cosmos will be skipped. So that is exactly what we're doing in life. What we're doing is we were born from the cosmos or the womb. We live multiple successions of lives and experiences, and then we gain all of our training, and then we connect more with the cosmos. Because remember, all of it is still inside of the cosmos. So our training is only to let us understand how to connect more with the cosmos. Because we talked about early, when you're born, the umbilical cord from the child is cut physically. But ethereally, that umbilical cord is still there. So this is exactly how the cosmos is behaving. It makes us even believe at times that we're not connected. Through our experiences, we start to believe, oh, I'm out here, I'm on my own, I'm rogue. But the reality is, and can never be changed, that you're still connected to the cosmos. So notice the cosmos' way of teaching us things. It simply makes us forget certain things are really true, and allows us to insert ideas that they're not, like we're not connected with the cosmos. So just think about that sometimes when you want to understand your lessons about what's taking place here on the planet. I wanted to give a word really briefly to this new subject that we began to uncover called negation. And I've noticed some comments on the resistance and different people getting involved in it. Some people don't understand it. And I wanted to make it very clear on what negation is. Now, what we've discovered is that when the mind stays in the dualistic state, or it's just choosing better, it doesn't think that it's everything, then it constantly short circuits in the area of the corpus callosum, which is in the center of the brain. That on the left side you have ma, and then on the right side you have ya. Let's just put it like that. And these masculine and feminine principles are having a hard time communicating inside of the body. So our responsibility here is to create a bridge that allows us to connect from one side of our brain to the other. And so this means that we must cross this wall in the corpus callosum. We must build a bridge from one side to another. And so what negation does is negation allows you to build this bridge, because what negating really means is not just to forget about something or to ignore something. Negation means that you no longer let it affect you in a negative way, because you're studying it to understand why it's there. You understand that 1 plus 1 equals 2. And 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 3. So you now need to get a full identification of, what these particular numbers are and what they do, rather than saying, I don't want to be involved with that one. Now we know for sure that Ma is making up what we can call in this trinity the first principle. And the reason that is for us is because we come out of the womb. And as they say, if you don't think that we're fractals, then why do we come out of other humans? That's exactly what a fractal is. It's birthed from the original, and it keeps duplicating itself. So our first level of connection was with Ma. Our next level of connection was with Yah. However, in this world, this appeared to us as I guess the correct term would be D-I. And this is why the Spanish God is still called Dios. And this is why all of the titles like Zeus, which is the God they're worshiping now as Zeus, but the Z is the D. The Zeus means two. So basically the masculine principle manifested itself as the second nature in order to bring forth us. Now, because people have a hard time identifying with the masculine principle, it became no end to how many wars and dualities and yins and yangs were created because of that. Because each being you're going to have to learn, you're already experiencing, but you're going to have to learn your parents and what they're up to. And it's easier to look at them more as grandparents rather than your parents or great-great-great-grandparents rather than your parents today. Because the parents today are a lot more lenient, for better lack of words, than the great-great-great-grandparents and how they taught lessons. So it's important to understand that the higher beings that we're calling mother or father are still in their archetypical role and have not been softened up, and they don't change. So the reality becomes is that you have to understand the sternness of the father, the gentleness of the mother, etc., and who to relate to for what. And this becomes a part of our lesson, and that's why we're here in Maya, because in order to teach these lessons without there being extreme punishments behind making mistakes, which we're all prone to do, then this is created. So, again, with negation, what negation allows you to do is it allows you to save a lot of energy, because you realize a few basic principles. First of all, negative, which is still needed just as ground is needed to power anything, does not exist on its own. So there's no such thing as pure evil, because pure evil cannot power itself. Negative needs positive in order to stay alive and to survive. What negation is about is about learning what role does negative really have, because in this case, negative becomes like the bitter that teaches us lessons. It becomes our grounding that allows us not to fly off and allows us to hold a lot of power because we are comfortable or seated in our power because of the experiences that we've had. So what negative actually does is negative has the hardest job. It must keep up with positive and seek out positive. Now, this is the funny part about our dimension. What people are noticing is a large amount of negative behavior, especially within the media, the wrath and things of this nature. But what they're not noticing is how many people are turning positive because of that. They're seeing it's going too far. They're doing stuff that I wouldn't even do. This is crazy. This is getting too negative. And then that person starts to go back into the positive region. Now, here's what's most important to also understand when you're moving into a cosmic mind about negative and positive. This can be understood by the simple symbol of the yin and the yang. What you'll notice is inside of the yin and yang symbol, you have both principles, or two. The circle that's around the yin and yang principle is one. So in order for you to understand how to be one, how to be all connected with everything, you have to understand the purpose of negative and positive, which manifests in our dimension as love and hate. Love and hate fuel this dimension, because in either state, as they always say, there's a thin line between love and hate. Yeah, that thin line is in between the yin and yang symbol. That's what that thin line is, love and hate. Because what happens is if someone takes away what you love, you hate them. And so there's a quick transition that can be made. But remember, outside of the circle, none of this is coming into consideration. They're not in love or hate. They're simply collecting the energy of these two opposite poles that are acting like pistons, what they're generating. So you have an opportunity now to move outside of this love and hate and move into the connection with everything. But I'll show you how so many people missed it. In earlier days, they actually were magnifying hate in order to find God. I'll show you how societies have changed. Hate was being magnified because people thought that if they expressed themselves in this way, then it would bring God. And there's many different versions of that, whether the Catholics in their crusades, whether the Muslims and their jihads of those days, and whether the people who were just all out insane, they thought that there was a higher force, that they would bring it by continuously hating, murdering, killing. Okay? So that whole cycle went by. And God, as for in that word, or the Most High, only showed up for a few people. That was the reality. So where we're moving into now is we're moving into how to make the Most High, or not make, but how to allow the Most High to appear for everyone. So after people stopped magnifying hate so much, they got tired, wore down. After the last war, a lot of people died. They decide, well, why don't we try something different? Let us magnify love. And as we saw the 60s and we saw all the New Age movements and different things now, but these two principles are exactly the same as each other if you really understand how this thing is working from outside of the circle. Because if you're actually every day, so this was the concept of most people. First they said, okay, well, I'm just going to do all of this stuff and do this hating and see if it'll bring God. So God did not show up for them. More devils were created. Then the person said, okay, well, I'm going to do the hate and love in balance. Actually, I'm sorry. Most people went to the love first. They went extremely to the opposite pole, and they said, okay, I'm going to do this love for a while. And after they did love for a prolonged period of time, they became extremely vulnerable to hate because they're still in this reality. Notice, if this was about hate or love, because there's a magnification of each of these on this dimension in certain people, if that was what this is about, they would be gone. So this is going beyond hate and love, and I'm going to show you where the cosmos is teaching us a lesson beyond hate and love. Because what they're actually saying is, for the person who decides to love, they became almost like when you don't eat anything that is cohesive with the environment. You're fasting. You only can breathe air that's in the high mountains. So when you come into what we would call a regular environment, then you're actually bombarded by what you call the hate frequency, or the negative grounding frequency, since you're way in the Himalayas in your mind. And so what ends up happening is hate. That person that loves so much actually switches poles once again and says, I hate the way the reality is. We need to change it. And remember, outside of the circle, all of this is just creating energy. So nothing is really being considered. So now you have this new group of people. And they're saying, well, what we're going to do is we're going to do hate and love in balance. This was very interesting to watch, because when a person's actually trying to keep balance between hate and love, it's a every second thing. Like if you watch your mind alone to see how the mind goes into hate and love, positive, negative, several times in one day, every single day, and you're expecting for that to change at some point as an indicator that you finally graduate to the highest state of consciousness, you have something else coming. It's not going to happen. The reality becomes hate and love themselves must be moved away from in the aspect that we understand it now. The mind must be left clear in order to be everything. It cannot have a program of love or hate and self-identification already loaded before it seeks to become everything. So this is the power of negation. Negation allows you to step back off of the whole thing and understand the meaning of it. It puts you outside of the circle, watching the yin and yang go about, not being yin or yang, which will take you forever to figure out which one you want to become, because they're still both dual states. So going forward, remember the passion of love and the fire of hate increase what we're calling our 0 point field. What's happening in the world now is that there's so many expressions of emotion, mainly love and hate, that people don't understand that it's actually beginning to drive this reality, and it's already happening. It's driving this reality's energy levels to heights that it's never seen before. So it's important to look at this very closely, this love and hate relationship, and understand where you want to be in it now, which is the knowledge of moving outside of the love and hate, but still remembering that the passion of love and the fire of hate increase energy. So if you can look relatively around us, you would see Venus is obviously creating love. And I'll show you how this is working. And Mars is obviously creating hate. But the most interesting part about this is each of these planets are also manifesting a dual nature of both of the love and hate principles. So it's like once something is divided into two, it gets divided again, and divided again, and divided again, ad infinitum. It remains to have two components, and I'll show you with Venus. Venus we have a huge connection with Venus that cannot be ignored. Not only is most things that produce a pentagram have some relation to Venus because it also draws a pentagram in the sky, or what I just call Venusian networks, because the Sirius star is also related to the number 5. The Cetus star system in Dagon is related to an inverted pentagram. So the reality becomes is that there's a whole network of geometry going on in Maya. If you learn that geometry for what it is, not delving into the experience, and we'll talk about that later physically, you can gain all the lessons that you need to learn. So we have Venus. Now, this love relationship with Venus, I'll explain it to you, because Venus is where a lot of voodoo comes from, because the heart symbol is a Venusian symbol, and that to us means love. However, if when you really love something, that means you'll protect it. So there's this other part of Venus that actually is responsible for war and protecting things, and this becomes its connection with hate. Likewise, if you look on Mars, Mars is definitely synonymous with war, because Mars is protecting things. And that can easily be looked at by a Martian as love. They love their land so much, they don't want to lose it. They love their blood or their kin so much, they don't want to lose it, and they're willing to fight for it. So you see how with both of these planets alone, you get the same components, whether you think one is related to love or hate. It doesn't matter. And as you span out into the cosmos, you'll find these kind of dual relationships. Like with Mercury, we know Mercury is in charge of a high level of knowledge that we receive, and Mercury was Buddha. However, it is that same high level of knowledge that has many people that have not obtained that feeling oppressed. So there becomes with our Maya, our universe, all of these lessons and rigorous lessons too. The planets are playing heavy levels of instructions. Like they're not playing games. They're acting like parents or, like I said, grandparents that when it's their opportunity to teach, they don't like to play around with their teaching. This becomes like a teacher that's laughing in class all the time, even though this teacher is on a serious subject. It's hard to grasp the subject. So when it's time for a planet, i.e. Archon, to teach, then it doesn't teach in what we call a nice way. It only fulfills its archetype. So this archetype nature gets us a little bit more into how Maya works. But before I get into that archetype nature, I want people to ask themselves this clear question. How many people in your family have expanded into anything close to this? Ask that question again. How many people in your family have expanded into anything like what we're explaining right now, to even delve into this to try to figure out what's really happening? When you really look around you, you'll see very few. Seize the moment. Because the knowledge that is actually being produced now and available is what we will call, quote unquote, extraterrestrial knowledge. It simply means, extraterrestrial means something that, or alien means something you're not familiar with. So this is alien knowledge because it comes from larger existences in Maya in which we're actually experiencing as a training module. So you can seize the moment, grab up as many light codes, as many different levels of understanding how things mean as you can as you continue your mission. You cannot die. It's an EverQuest. So if we look at all day as everything as not to be learned from, remember we've learned now to examine everything, and negation has allowed us to examine it deeper. But if we spend our lives sinking ourselves into whatever we're examining one at a time, then we'll find out that we'll come to higher levels of knowledge like we've done at the Resistance. Then comes the time where you let go of the childish-like behavior of rejecting so many things that you know, in fact, to be truer than anything else that's around here in Maya. Meaning that while we are living this life, just like our family and our children and different things are here, that there's a certain seriousness that comes with that alone. So we can start to look at a lot of this information that is available that we know, in fact, to be true as just as serious and see how we can maneuver ourselves around this dimension. And that's why I said it's time to enhance the experience of what we have here at the Resistance, because there's so much more that we really could be doing if we understand more about how this works. In an illusion, you have to understand how to maneuver your illusion. This is called lucid dreaming. You have to know how to move things around in there so you can get more experience. Because remember, there's beings that are headlong into getting experience. many of us haven't even started yet. So let's get our experience going on by understanding what the universal laws that are related to experience. Now, this word law. This word law also is the word wall. W-A-L. Okay? And the reason this is because the law puts a wall in between, in betwixt the dimensions. It separates the fools from those who are seeking. And I'll explain why. Because in the illusion or in Maya, if you're not learning anything and you're just here, that's looked at as foolish by the whole cosmos because they're like, man, they don't understand. They'll be in the illusion for a long time. That's crazy. That's really foolish because the journey has not even began. So before the journey has really began, then that's one side of what they call the wall. Those people are just on that side because they are doing nothing in retrospect to stuff that really needs to be looked into deeply, needs to have archetypes assigned to it, needs to have lessons assigned to it. So remember, before, in the area of the Fool, which correspond more to the stages of the moon, there's nothing in there that really needs to be too serious. And that's why you'll notice most people that don't want to learn anything, they don't want to really take anything too serious. But when a person starts to take things serious, then they approach this wall of the law. Now, we'll talk a little bit about those laws. Let me see exactly what time we have here because we're going to be going on a little half-hour break. Actually, we're about halfway through the show. I wanted to encourage members, if you wanted to call in, later on we're going to be taking questions. That number is area code 347-996-5688. And we're going to go ahead and we're about 45 minutes, and we're going to take a little 5-minute break, 10-minute break, or yeah, actually 5-minute break. And then when we get into this, we're going to talk about the law. We're going to talk about where the law or the Torah came from. We're going to talk about what was going on with Mars, because remember, this whole show is still about Mars, the 5D secret in Egypt. However, before we can even talk about that kind of stuff, it's important for us to understand exactly where we are, the whole Maya illusion connection, etc., because then a lot of what comes later on sounds somewhat contradicting to some of the previous information that we experience and we know. But the reason that is taking place is because we see that there is actually rigorous universal laws that must be followed in order for one to make the ascent. And if they are looking at what happened before in their lives, then they'll see that thus the way that they have been handling things has gotten them only so far, but not really far when you measure it in time. Like when we think about how long have we been learning this knowledge and how far has it really taken us. I've noticed when switching certain things within my mind that I've been able to get a lot further and save a lot more energy in order to project myself astrally by changing some of how I'm expending my energy. And of course, I wanted to be able to share that with everyone on the show today. So once again, we're going to take a little bit of break here, and then we're going to take some questions towards the end of the show. We are forward, and I want to thank everyone for calling in and listening to the Universal Current show. And I have a really good feeling that everyone is ready to definitely expand into this and to get some more understanding on exactly what's going on in Maya. And so let us start. Basically, it takes 21 days to break a habit. This is something that is 100% proven. And if you notice, there's also 21 cards in the tarot deck. Now, the word tarot, to understand the word tarot is to superimpose the T's on top of themselves, which makes the word Torah. The word Torah was also called the first 5 books of the Old Testament and called the law. Okay? And of course, many are familiar with what was documented in those books of Moses's, Abraham, Moses, and the Exodus, etc. But there were a lot of laws and things that were written for the structure of how the world is actually working now. But what I find is the most interesting part is that there is a deeper lesson that is being conveyed, and few have tapped into that knowledge except for those who understand Kabbalah. And I'll explain this to you very briefly, that basically the language of Hebrew was one of the original languages that was presented to humanity when they were in their pre-stages. That language was given directly by part of the Maya creators, for better lack of words. So it becomes very important to understand the reason why a lot of this information we don't know is because we don't speak Hebrew. And so thus we don't know the letter and the number correspondence. But if we did, what we will find is that each division of these laws or taros or Torah corresponds to a letter in the Hebrew language. So what you're really looking at in the Bible is the story of the processions of man and woman, not just the story of a God. So let's say actually you're looking at the procession of the souls, not so much as what happened with the God, with the people. When it was changed later on, because the Bible has been changed to fit the political agenda of the king. Remember, most of them are written in 1611. That's 1,611 years, supposedly from the main character's story. So imagine how many things could have been changed. What we're actually looking at is we're looking at when the book was split up to make it external. Because any real book, such as the Bhagavad Gita, it's writing about the soul's experience, not men and women and animals. And it's any type of book for you to get into a higher state of consciousness would have to only speak from a level of the soul, not anything as an external conflict. So, because any type of external conflict is manifested within, it must be dealt with within first in the mind. And this is, again, why the negation comes into play, is because you can neutralize adversaries. Notice the term, neutralize. They mean they have nothing to you. They have no meaning to you except for just a lesson. You can examine the lesson and then gain much more knowledge out of it. So now you've learned how to extract positive from negative. This is a magnificent being. This is what's attempting to be created here on this planet consistently. And it will continue. Like this planet has a very expansive future, especially when those of higher consciousness make themselves fully known to man and woman. But they have always been here. Since it takes 21 days to make or break a habit, there was this heavy law about 21, which is 3, which is also 12 backwards. And this became known as our procession or our wheel of our fortune. And anyone who understood how it worked could actually balance out their wheel. So you can see how powerful the knowledge was, and that's why those who are in possession of it now are actually, they actually stole it. And they are using it in ways in which they are not supposed to be using it, but it has the power to morph the illusion completely. So let's talk about where this comes from. It comes from Mars. Now, any time, as we were talking last week on Willem's show, that the straight line actually negates the circle. It creates an illusion inside the circle. So if you draw a circle on a piece of paper and then you draw the diameter across, that diameter or that straight line is the illusion. When you pull these two symbols apart, it's just a 0 and a 1. It becomes very important to understand. It's just a 0 and a 1. A circle and a straight line, or a curve, or an arc and a straight line. With these, anything can be created here. That's already the knowledge that's been known. Now, it's very clear that the 0 relates more to a feminine principle that looks like a hole, while the 1 relates more to a masculine principle. That's a straight line. So, notice the story that you get in the Old Testament. You get a story where Moses understands all of the wisdom of the Egyptians. For those who understand the Bible story of Moses, in the house of the Egyptians, learning all of the knowledge of the priests. Then something is also occurring in Egypt, which we know for sure in our history occurred, which was Egypt had accumulated so many people within its city, it was only going to be a matter of time before they were completely overthrown. Even Lower Egypt had experienced problems from Upper Egypt attempting to expand. So basically, you just had a huge melting pot in the old days because Egypt was like the city. Everyone, just like they talk about the U.S. now, that's why the U.S. became Egypt, was just trying to get to Egypt to work and to see the colossal figures and things of this nature, because the demands of people then were not as high as they are now. We need to understand that the people back in the day, something simple would fascinate them. It's more like a child. They're very young in understanding all of experiences. So Egypt was something that everyone wanted to go to and everyone coveted from across the lands. It was because Egypt had a connection with Mars. Mars is known, or we'll just refer to this planet as, in the beginning, Ma. Notice, when you add an R and an S etymologically to Mars, you can see now there's two masculine components that have been added. One is a reptilian, and the other one is a serpent. And the reason why I separate those down is because the reptilians have legs like the serpents don't. They slither about, and it's a lot to do with how energy moves. So this original, what was Mars when it was a virgin planet? It was a womb. So when you look at Moses says he's parting the waters, the Red Sea. This Red Sea that he's parting is actually Mars. Mars becomes funkendated just like Earth at a certain point became funkendated. We have to follow along with this, people, and understand we're seeing in nature everything that we experience. Things get funkendated. There are other planets that have been funkendated. There's one right across from us. It's called Mars. It's a very interesting story because it's an older planet. You know it's an older planet because it has Ma on it, and Ma is older. So, because of this relationship with, and Mars has an interesting story to tell because it has a lot to do with a destiny that many of us in our psyche are afraid of, which is the destruction of our planet through war. Like Mars got that tag because it went to war with, Ma went to war with R and S. When they came in, there was basically the planet was removed from its virgin state and taken into producing. Now, many people are looking at this now, and they're having a hard time with it. They're having a hard time understanding the reptilian and how the reptilian has invaded our environment, and the archons and how they have put their hypnosis onto the environment. And many people are that even know that are struggling with that. But what is the next level after that? Can we remove ourselves from the yin and yang for a moment to figure that out? I'll tell you what the next level is. After the involvement, and during the involvement of higher states of consciousness into our environment, it propels our mind state and our experience into the next level that most people cannot visualize, just like most people couldn't visualize in the industrial age what the space age would look like. You see? So we're living in the space age. Now, the next level, look at droids, look at these computers. They're everywhere. They're at every beckoning call. So where are we at now and where are we going next? We're going to ether. And many people have a hard time imagining ether, how we're going to go there. They know it's going to all be over. Like people think it's all going to be over. Where is that coming from? This feeling that we're all going to be gone. It's because we're about to transmute into a high level of spirituality. We're about to collect a large part of ourselves that was lost. And it starts here with this kind of information. Like I said, with the child's first mantra being Ma. When they understand that the original, they say all women, you can look this up right now, all women from all parts of the world, Russians, Africans, Chinese, all of them stem back to one particular DNA of a black woman that existed 130,000 years ago, that they've already located the DNA. Letting you know it's one large matriarch. Woman is just as expansive to understand how many forms and how many shapes she can take. Not our limitation of our reality of what we think a person should be able to do. Beings have shape-shifted over time. They've learned beautiful looking at what they think. They learn what they think beautiful is by looking at pyramids and looking at phi. Notice, when something is put in front of you that you're in awe, inspiration of, you begin to become that. And because Egypt was the biggest place, people could see the pyramids and their gold coatings across the sand like it was another sun out there. It was just known as that's the place to go, because there was something better going on than what people were experiencing. So notice, people follow certain things. They call them the gold temples, the golden temples. The word pyramid means gold house. So people follow that because it resonates to something that they're familiar with. They feel it inside. It's a different level of being able to communicate. And so what I discovered is that the Ma had been through a lot. Like the planet Mars had ended up going to a state of critical, things went critical. And the Zulu story is that they had to bail out of Mars to save a large part of the races and bloodlines, black and white, because there's always been a melanin dominant and melanin recessive thing going on with positive and negative fields. This is just a product of being in that. I'm a product of my environment. Exactly. It can morph and change the individual, especially when their DNA is calibrated to do such things, calibrated to adapt. But it doesn't erase the soul in its original ordination of what it is. That comes from the zero. So the biggest thing for us to understand in regards to the Mars connection is that when Mars came here, it changed everything about what people thought was to be done and could be done. And not to mention, once the first pyramids started to drop, and they say the pyramids first were built so you could drop them from the sky like arcs, and they would slam into the earth and begin to drill themselves down somewhat. This is already known to have take place in China. Check the Chinese legend in regards to their pyramids. They have more pyramids than Egypt has. So there's a full recording of basically the mass effect fallout of Mars onto this planet, which was like a beautiful garden before basically refugees got here. So the reality is that the structures will tell you everything. The Cyclopean architecture will tell you everything because it started to pop up everywhere, and then a new system of belief for most individuals became in the play. They started going stellar, which is the first cults we record were stellar cults first, because what they saw came from the stars, and then they worshipped it. They worshipped them because they were there. Look in the Egyptian text. The gods are sitting on the throne. Look in the Cambodian text, in the Angkor Wat. The gods are there. Look in India. They're there. They're not what we know of them now as figment imagination, and we don't know if they're contacting us or if they like us. It wasn't like that. They were there. So look at the day when the pyramids and ships came from the sky, burrowed into the earth. The people that were here were indigenous. And then they begin to cohabitate and begin to make the humanoid as we know it, because there was multiple blends, not with just the monkey, but there was multiple blends taking place with these beings because they also had excessive knowledge of genetic science. So when you look at the Hebrew word mim, that word is the root to your memory. That is one of the mothers. They call it the mothers. That mem connects to Mars. The memories were there but they split them in half. And this is what the symbolism of Moses coming down with 2 tablets. Now there's some people who's going to get it and some people who are not. That's all they're saying. Don't look at what's being written. Just look at the number. Don't look at what they're saying. That's how the book of Numbers is written. It's written with deep codes about the future and the past, etc., but it's all in numbers. So if anyone doesn't understand how numbers convert to letters, and then how letters convert to symbols, and how those symbols each mean a state of consciousness, all laid out in a shape that collapses and expands upon itself, then that's what it seems in this reality right now that's accessible. And I can see the use of that within this planet, in these universes now, because that's what experience really is. Experience says, well, what do I experience after this? Something that I create or something that someone's made for me? Because both of these are your choice. These are your two choices. And then there's another choice that says you can go cosmic. But we now know, because of the system of thought, it takes time to go cosmic. You have to become everything. So you have to learn how not to do positive, negative. You have to learn how to negate. You have to learn the secrets to the mysteries that are brought forth here on Earth. You have to learn a little bit about the geometry and how basically a circle and a straight line. That's all the geometry you need. A straight line is a pentagram. It connects. A straight line connects to the pentagram. And if you take that pentagram, as they call it, a golden mean. Actually, the golden mean or the golden rectangle. When you keep finding all the correlations to that, you'll find every place a person is mainly going to be blocked. Like, where is the wall? The wall is every place you find a straight line. Now, it has a deep level of experience to it, but until you learn that experience, ye shall not pass. It's literally like each lesson is literally some of the major archetypes of the tarot. And so each lesson and each stage that we go through in life actually presents itself something to us. So when the straight line was presented to us, it became time for a lesson. That's how you negate. You don't go, the straight line is the evil, and the evil, you're getting into so much stuff that has nothing to do with still figuring out the bigger part of your situation. So let's go deeper. Notice how the law defends itself. I'll explain this to people and why most people have not been talking about this, and some people run away from it, etc., because it protects itself. The law of the 21 protects itself by this way. A person that sees these tarot, let's say the tarot deck, in the law of 21, when they see that deck, the first person generally is coming from some type of religious background, so they immediately put it away because they say, this is magic, this is stuff that we should not touch. So they put it away. So the law protects itself once. Then you have these other individuals that they'll pick it up, and I call these the Lord of the Rings people. They totally miss the point. They get the fairy and they get the dragon and they get the different versions of it, and then, they're all off into their mind. Because remember, whoever comprehends it is not a fool, because they now have graduated from what they have there is the 0 card. You go into 1. So let's explain that. There's another way, like this, the third person, they're like hired, that touches the tarot. I call them hired diviners. They're the ones that can seem to predict the future based on the cards. They totally missed it, because the cards are simply patterns and archetypes of all the images that exist here on this planet, but they're not to be used on other individuals. So he misses it. Law protects itself again. The fourth set of individuals that walk in trying to pick up the law, they become, I call them the Inquisitors. They are the ones who start to dissect it, start to pull apart the symbols to see what the symbol means. But they are probing it. Like, they literally have it in there as in a sterile environment, and they're trying to find the mystical secret behind it. They miss it too, because they never learned that each number has 2 correspondences. That's the only way you can cancel out the duality, meaning a 0 is also a 1. A 1 is also a 2. It lets you know how those things came about. If you understand how to logically and critically think, you have to understand, how did this come about? So you see the 0 card is actually is what we learn has to be moved around, because if a 0 is a fool, then surely we've gone lost. We learned that the 1 becomes the fool card. So it's easier to look at it like this. The next stage is the beginning initiate. The person who they show as the card is the magician. Now, not the magician that we're looking at in our world today as what they're calling themselves magician. Magician only means, notice ma is in front of that the individual has learned that there is a spiritual component to the reality. Thus, they are given a sixth in the beginning of a sixth sense. This means they're no longer governing their lives based on five senses. They actually consider that there is a spiritual connection to everything that they're experiencing. This doesn't mean they have all power. This doesn't mean that they can walk through walls. This doesn't mean anything. It just means that they've acknowledged that. And that's why that second card looks that way. Now, there's some stages that I just wanted to discuss because today is really more about the Mars connection. But this is the law. There's a few stages within it that stick out more than others. In your procession through spiritual knowledge, whether you want to look at this system or not, you're actually experiencing it. And that's the craziest part about it. So you don't have to you're living the law. The most important thing now is to understand how to maneuver yourself around it, is to understand what stage you're in. Some people are like, well, I don't even know if I'm close, or I don't even know if I'm far. This is what this allows you to do, because it's not about a close or a far. It's about understanding the choices that are going to be presented to you and how you should make those choices, how you should make decisions. There's a maturity level that is incurred by understanding the law. That maturity level allows you to enter into worlds that don't have conflict. Like if you notice, the number 13 has no 2 in it. So that allows it to be without conflict. That's why it's known as the death number. Because it has no 2, it has no die. You see, so there's a deeper level of knowledge that has to be conveyed, but only when you're mature. So this next phase is what they call the Empress. It's a fertile component. Now notice, anytime there's a woman introduced, it's a fecundating component. It's to produce some type of fertility in your mind and in your body and in your soul. So there's 3 states really to a woman's knowledge. But the main 2 states that they point out is, one, the Empress, which is nature. Because while you're here, you have to learn how to manage your body and to tap into our idea of immortality by watching nature. Because nature has the secret. So anyone who does not connect with nature does not go beyond a certain point. Likewise, there's another called the High Priestess. This becomes the wisdom of the mysteries and the chakra centers and the moon and the magnetic energy coming from there and the kundalini. This is just that knowledge. So do you see how when someone says High Priestess and then immediately we visualize an actual physical person and then we see that person, that's externalizing your experience. To internalize it is to understand everything that exists inside of that being, not what you see outside of that being. Even more deeper cards, the life of the hermit. The hermit, the real interpretation of that card is not someone who goes and runs off and leaves everyone and goes to the mountains. It's actually the person who is blending in everyday life, and you would never know they contain this high level of knowledge. Because if you've ever got to the level of being that number or that hermit, that later on in your life, later on in your experience, you've already learned that you have to learn to blend in with your family and your friends. You cannot cut off your life supply and connection with your experiences. There's nothing that you're running from by that point. But the hermit still is capable of not telling and revealing knowledge to individuals that it's not going to help. He's learned to differentiate between one and the other. They show the last card as the cosmos. And we talked about this the other day internally, but we were just talking about how you really, really need to get so many of these connect it properly before you can talk about going into the cosmos, because what the cosmos really is, when I went for a vision of it, is you are actually fully connected into everything that is living an experience, like we are now, a physical experience. However, you do not physically dive in. It's literally like you can experience everything at one time, but you never physically dive in. That's how it is to be the cosmos. But what happens all the time is because we're all connected to the cosmos, when we connect to it in this up and down cycle, we at times see something like a light or a certain kind of essence or experience that we desire so much, we plunge into it. Just like they talk about the Gaia mythos, that when she saw the idea of all of this being created, basically Maya, she became so fascinated with it, she plunged into it herself. This is surely the symbol of us understanding, because of the power level of what kind of being we are, which is definitely resident. It has these abilities to dive into very rich, very intricate experiences, and that's what Phi has a lot to do with. That's how the illusion was created, because Phi can continue ad infinitum to a certain point while it's still creating variations of the same thing. So what our reality exists with is tons of variations of the same thing, so that it appears to us that it's something different. And this becomes, like I looked at, there's another deck in particular, because I've only actually looked at some of the ancient decks of this law, but there is one deck in particular that whoever did it knew exactly what was going on, because the card that they actually show is a person going through multiple doors on Pi. They call this the Fool card, as if he's lost. He has this pack on his back, and he keeps going through these doors that are layered around Pi, because, of course, that Phi actually makes the rectangle or a door. Remember how we were talking about the money is shaped like a rectangle or a door, and then there is a face inside. And how they talk about this ark that Moses kept carrying with him. It's a rectangular box. So what we find is that this knowledge, like if you look at the movie Rainbow, which we're going to be taking apart here, we're going to do some awesome work on it. The pentagram is being shown everywhere, but now that you know that the pentagram is a straight line, you can get into deeper levels of understanding who is powering a lot of what's going on here from the negative experience. So negative gets to show up, but remember we're negating. Who is it really behind there? So when I even look at the internet right now for a decent explanation of the pentagram, you don't get one. And on the resistance, we have a lot of stuff that we've listed separately, but to bring it all together, they say the pentagram is called the Abrax. It means 365. It is the root of the word abracadabra. It means to pin. You can hold spirits inside of it. When it unfolds in one level, it makes a door. When it unfolds in another level, it makes a straight line. So this knowledge of Phi, the golden mean, notice everything related to gold is within the golden mean, the golden ratio, the golden number, was exactly how the pyramids were constructed to match up with Mars. Why? Because the gold people, the ones who bought gold, the gold essence, the people think that the gold was already here inside of our earth. No, those are the people that were here. That's them in the strata. Like when you want to know what happens when you die, you end up in the strata. And whatever kind of crystal you are, when you crystallize, you become in this strata of earth and Maya. To still emanate because you're strength then, you're cosmic, you're connected through frequency. So you can see it all unwind. You can see how it all works now. It's just about being able to, one, cancel out certain ideas in your mind that make this a negative experience for you. Make you not like these people. I told other people the other day, look, my duty here is to bring the truth when the truth falls upon me. When it comes to me, to bring it to you. Not to think of what I said before and last week. So when the truth comes, it's there for you to receive. And so that's how it is with me too. It's when the truth comes for me, it's there for me to receive. There's no reason for us to keep holding ourselves back. You know, the main thing I started to notice, much of our hatred towards different versions of spirituality, much of that really comes from more or less an idea of holding oneself back to receive something. Like, if it could give you powerful levels of knowledge, why would you not take it? So our whole level of experience has become like a wounded animal. That's what they say. Because of some of the experiences that have happened here on earth, many of the spirits are wounded and fractalized. So when you try to bring them into the truth, they don't want it. They run from it. They somehow imagine that you're going to hurt them with it. People don't understand exactly how long the resistance has been really going on and how long we've been getting into this knowledge and information in real time and pulling this all apart. Why? Not to entertain everyone, because we want to know how to experience, how to work this thing. Like, it's crazy. We don't have control over it, but we want control over it. But what are we trying to get control of? So all those questions had to be answered. And I tell you the truth, brothers and sisters, that question has been answered now. The law is the wall. It can be removed very easy. All it takes is negation. Once you start to negate, meaning understanding the role of negative and positive energy and moving into a higher circle, you actually start to fire off in the center of your brain, and it brings you ideas and application. Because remember, when this works, it simply means that you get it. Like, there's all of these other things that you know you need to get to doing fast. You run down to your local store and you grab this kind of herb. All of a sudden you remember that you were doing a certain technique and that got you really far. You see, it starts to connect again this conflict that existed within the brain. It connects these two sides so that they can get you going. And then the other cycles and the faculties also, they're doing the same thing, because when you're in duality, it splits your cells. It splits things all over the body. It even creates a split personality. So this is the reality of how to actually connect. Like, we look at the code of the matrix. The code of the matrix starts with two individuals connecting with each other across the cosmos or across a mirror. Because the idea was definitely in my mind that you had another you that you needed to connect to in order to make yourself complete. This is how to connect to that. Understanding where you are on the path. Understanding that I am also you. That's cosmic thought. There's still stages in between that. If the faster you can move through those stages, you can move through being a hermit. You don't have to worry about convincing everyone of what you want to say, but you're constantly at work on your great work, and you have your comrades and your people with you that are experiencing that, so you can share that with them. You have great love and great joy, but when you're expressing and experiencing that, you're doing it for that moment. It has no residue. That was the main thing for us to understand about how our love and how our joy manifests. Because people say, well, what do you mean? Do I not love or hate my children? When you were experiencing something, because the mind needs to be kept clear, when you're experiencing something, you can do it more than ever if you focus on that moment. So when it's time for you to focus on taking care of your children and expressing to them what you feel for them, you can do it at that moment. But when it's over, the mind is to have no residue. Only the master can really do this, because people are constantly thinking about other things when they should just have their mind clear. But understand why. It doesn't mean that you don't love them, you don't care for them. Actually, it's quite the opposite. Because as we talked about before, how many people in your family are even able to grasp what is being explained? So this means that you are personally being told about this. You are personally being entreated to become the first in your family to actually begin to deliver high levels of information that this reality has so far stumbled upon or stumbled over. And that's now has to change. And so there's a large part of the message today that I've definitely covered. I definitely want to say to people, because there's this high level of dualistic nature that goes on in the younger spiritual mind that wants to go and battle things. And I'll ask you this, because of immortality, and you have to put yourself in a state of forever to ever enjoy that, how long could you fight and battle demons with your special power? How long can you really criticize? They're going to keep creating things for you to criticize. It's almost to the point where they're looking at the synchronistic knowledge to figure out what movie they're going to make next. So when a person makes the movie next, then they make the movie next, the person who knows the synchronistic will say, oh man, it's just like they were talking about. Yeah, because they're actually following our work and making movies based on our work. Like they're just in service. The reality becomes is that you can seize this moment to actually access all the information about how to really navigate the universe. However you see that or not, and however you think that comes about to people, that's just on you. But I'm telling you today that is what is being presented on the show. So we're going to take a couple of calls. Actually, for those that are calling in the line, if you have a question, you can actually press 1. And I'm going to get into a little bit more about this wall because it pops up several times, and I'm going to take these calls. But they say Dhul Qarnayn in the Quran. It says Dhul Qarnayn, who's known as Alexander the Great two-horn. And these are all the terms being used. Built the wall. Now we know the ones who have horns on their head are they're They're the dual gods. They're the horn gods. And that's why it shows up so much as the father principle back in the old days. And so what you literally see is that you see that history, man, is really fascinating. It has way more than the Lord of the Rings or any of these type of mythical doctrines that do hold a little bit to the truth could ever offer you more than what you're already experiencing. And so it becomes whether or not that you can really keep it as your lesson and still understanding negative has no power except unless you give it that power over you. You can examine it, but it has no effect on you. It won't have an effect anyway, no matter what happens, even if negativity is magnified as much as it can be on this dimension. Like I said, the most that it does is it kills an individual. And then that individual is really free. Now they have no phi to still be trapped in, if you want to call it trapped. So we're going to go ahead and take this caller, area code 804, area code. Caller, you're actually on Esoteric Radio.
Hey, man, how you doing today? My only question to you would be, I'm actually not, for lack of better words, activated, but I'm still able to absorb this information to a level where I can actually break apart things now at like their basis, at like the base level. And my only question to you would be then, is my own power my fear? Because I can present this information to basically anybody, and it's probably one person that could grasp it like me within my own household. And my only question would be what would be the fear in me activating in a way where I could actually help people?
Well, I mean, to answer that question directly, first of all, you're definitely activating in a way that you can actually help people now. If you really look at activation, they talk about this in the later stages of the law, that then the person gains the ability to be able to understand how to manage the energies that begin to course through their body from an activated chakra system. So now we're talking down the path further when a person has actually been manifested a reality where they can start to work on their energy centers. See what I mean? And so these energy centers don't have anything to do with a lot of the superhero stuff that we see on TV all the time, because remember, most of those powers are used to go into conflict. That's what they keep showing on TV. The superhero takes his power and then he fights the bad guy with it. So basically he takes the power and he fights himself with it.
Yeah, I listened to Brilliant Essence when you explain how you could use adrenaline in like a fear state, and you could suck that in and basically exploding into the reality.
For sure. I mean, and that's when one is converting fear early from when they start to, when that other realm starts to become apparent to them, because that's when the fear and things start to really kick in, as we know it, is when, like I said, the spirits start to move in, or you start to feel a transferring coming from your body. That's when we start to feel a little bit unsure about what we're experiencing. But to get just right into the question directly, I really want you to understand that a major part of our spiritual progress has a lot to do with us understanding the universal laws and principles before we can actually weld power that can be vividly manifested within this world. See, remember, you would manifest power in the inner world before you would manifest power in the outer world, because that one is more subtle. So you have to start to work really more on the inner world with the negation, because the negation actually allows you to still start gaining more of the lessons that you still have to learn within the knowledge, because the knowledge is there. Like I said, I'll be presenting a lot of information about the path itself, because many people talk about the path and they use that word, the path, but what are the stages on the path for someone who's crossed the path? We have that information now, and it's just about getting it presented to everyone so that they can see it. What this does is, not to lean it all on information, but what this does is it lets you know what your next step should be. And it's not something that wasn't already here. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that would have the question of, should that kind of knowledge be put into people's hands? It already was. And then it was taken away. Like, whatever reason a person wants to give for that, when it was taken by force. And other individuals used it, and it works just the same because it works on laws of the universe. So you see how if someone knows the laws of the universe, it doesn't matter really who they are. Those laws will manifest. So that's the power within it. It gives you the ability to actually control how you're stationed in this reality. And that's before power, because remember, power means a higher vibratory frequency, and it means that, like we were talking about the other day, what is the person going to go and do with it? It's like, if you want to heal someone, you really have to begin to connect with the earth first, because that's the one that's responsible for being able to allow you to make the connection with that person without scaring them. Because there's things that you have to know about that individual before you can start to really heal them in the real way. Because remember, healing is mind, body, and soul. If a person is experiencing a physical ailment, it has a lot to do with their spiritual condition. So you have to be able to move in on both of those levels when you're ready to do something with those individuals.
I definitely could understand that. And you said I got this on my phone actually, my email address and all that. But you sent me an email with the MMS links. All of those safe links where I could go and get this product.
Yes, that's actually just the general page for MMS and who's providing it. And you can always get a few of those people on the phone, and they'll be more than willing to discuss with you how to get it to you. But other than that, it's very safe. If they can get it to you, everyone is pretty tightened up right now. It's just there was a situation with the mail and MMS because it's flammable, and they wanted to make sure that situation didn't happen again.
Oh, I
got one more caller that I'm going to go ahead and take, brother. I do appreciate you calling in to the Universal Current Show in conjunction with Esoteric Radio.
Thank you, man.
No doubt. Okay, caller, you're calling from area code 404, Atlanta.
What's up, Sevan?
What's going on?
Hey, all right, doing good. I just want to ask you a quick question. Looking around, what's going on around the world right now and everything, as far as this so-called occupation, how much that you think is demon-driven? I know you said something about the youth and the fighting spirit.
I definitely want to speak on that. If, just within this last 4 minutes that we have here, because it's definitely the spirit of revolution is sweeping across the land, but it also looks like blind fury, because what's really supposed to happen. And that's what I think that a lot of the deeper knowledge allows you to look deeper into situations to figure out, like chess. Well, what if we do get a reaction from them? What is the best that they can give us? It's like if people are downtown, they're occupying Wall Street, what do they want them to do? Shut down Wall Street? And just say, okay, forget it, guys, you're right, Wall Street's stupid. Let's just shut it down for the day. And for the rest of the year, and let's just forget about it. So the thing is that if any of these movements that are being pushed right now from a physical level come to fruition, it will only equal more destabilization. But do you see how those two energies drive each other? While you have one person that has a lot of passion for protecting what they think they should be protecting, and then you have this other individual that also wants to keep it safe too and make sure that there doesn't become too many people who don't need it. So really, when you start looking at both of them, you realize that they're exactly the same in many ways, meaning the Illuminati behind the curtain and the individual downtown protesting against it, because of both of how they're choosing to utilize their energy right now. Like right now, because when the person goes home, what's happened? Did God write in the book? Okay, they went to a protest. That's a lot for them. Did the law change? Did anything really happen? Now, we know for sure that because of all these protests around the world, that a lot of these secret societies are actually meeting about the solution. But remember, they already have the solution because they know why. So what is the solution and what was the problem, etc.? They have all those. Problem, reaction, solution, just like David Icke used to talk about. So what is really going on is they are going to bring the more advanced being. They did not build the United Nations for nothing. Like all that is not just it was not in vain. They don't build in vain. Remember, it's Maya, so there's a large part of the illusion that is already known about what's going to happen, because when you look at the laws, you'll see the laws have never deviated. You see across time how man has went and woman have went through these different cycles and have experienced different things, and the only ones who have ever been able to stop it is the ones who, and stop it for themselves, is the ones who know the law, those who know the law. The other ones, the masses, that's the reason why it's changing cycles. You see what I mean? Like they become the zodiac, they become the Scorpios, they become the Pisces. So it's very interesting to watch this very closely, and you'll see they have only two choices, and this is how you could kind of narrow it down. The two choices were complete destabilization, World War III, or complete solution for everyone, extraterrestrial. Not necessarily extraterrestrial how we know it, like Gray, even though he may be back there too, but extraterrestrial in the way we're more advanced state of consciousness, i.e. an ascended masters. When this starts to happen, then reality starts to get ideas that it can become one, despite all the propaganda that's going to be starting to push out to show how different they are than us. See what I mean? Because once the society is moving progressively in the direction of not allowing people to know who they are. That pushes them more to know who they are. The next level of that is for them to see another one, and that other one say, well, I've achieved this, and you cannot achieve this because this is how I'm different. I came from, and then they name their planet. And then people don't realize that they also came from probably the same planet or somewhere around it. So the game keeps playing, but the gambit changes because the whole world it gets this essence of that there is a higher level as the world turns. Like the Earth has a long future still ahead of itself. It's not like people think that it's going to happen here, but it can stop for you at any moment, because when you move past the 13th card, i.e. death and the fear of death, time is not your thing. You can move out of it. But remember, these are laws. What actually allows you to get in there is understanding what came before it. Know the two numbers of the card. Know how to do what they call solve. And next week we're going to talk a little bit about solve. I'm going to actually let this show carry over for another 10 minutes. But the thing is about to count down real quick, and it's going to be interrupting what I'm saying, because I do want to talk about solving. Let's let this countdown happen real quick here. All right, it's going to start here in just a moment. It said it had 15 seconds. It's going to do a little 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because the solving thing becomes very important. Because today, realistically, if I can give everyone all the knowledge that they need to have today, right now on this phone, then I would do it, because it's not for me to hold everyone here waiting on the next show. It's for me to attempt to give everyone everything the moment that it comes to me. And I tell you the truth, some stuff has come to me at this point because all of my experiences with the spiritual world, etc., and reading all this stuff, that I know 100% is the truth. The thing that I'm having the most trouble with is how to exactly explain that to people, because there's so much of that truth that they've already become very conflicted with. And it's not Jesus. They always say, well, does that mean Jesus? No, actually, Jesus is still a fictional character in my book. It doesn't exist. He didn't exist as a physical man. But when it comes to other things like those laws, those rules, the ones who built the wall, the jinn, the yads, or the fire gods, Nephilims, these kind of things actually hold real sway in the illusion Maya. Like they've built themselves into this, and we shouldn't look at it as illusion that is going to be destroyed and dissipated. We should look at it as yet another illusionary training cycle, very similar to the fractal of the cosmos, but because of its actual level, it's come to imperfection. It's like there's levels between every time these worlds are created, and the ones that are lower have slight more imperfections, while the ones that are higher have more perfection. As we continue to perfect ourselves, as we move up through these worlds and these experiences are actually perfecting us. To actually see how many there is to only know the top. The top is the cosmos. You would have to be everything. So whether this means you would have to experience life as being everything, like each of your life, one time you were a moth, one time you were, I would hope that wouldn't be how it works, because there's a lot of different creatures out here. I believe after you hit a certain point, you start to collect a lot of essence. It's like a star cluster that begins to pull in a lot of the essence of the stars and the emanations that are around it. This is basically you experiencing, learning, and understanding a large amount of stuff all at one time. Then once you can collect that, it's like you become infinitely small for a moment, and then you explode again. And this whole cycle is supposed to take place in you all the time. And it's like a massive atom generator. When that state occurs, and it will, the reality that one is perceptive of at that point, you can see how there is nothing that can hold a physical vibratory frequency there. To enter into that state, the preparation that is necessary is what we're experiencing in the illusion, because there can be no errors there, because there's no such thing as time. Notice time or error means a segment of time. Error also means a mistake. So that means that time is created so that mistakes can be made, so they can be ironed out, worked out, and then perfected, and then the one goes into that perfected state. And every single person here in this planet is in a process of that. So what happens is that when we desire to want to become something that doesn't match up properly with our spiritual progress, then it slows us down. When we want to become something that slows us down, when we want to become something that's actually next in our process, we speed to it immediately. So, in that theory, if you had them all lined up, would you not be able to go through all your lessons straight away, rather than learning lessons that weren't even the ones that you were supposed to learn, etc.? That's what the law is about. So again, the first stage is the fool. They have no idea that there is really spirit. They don't think and act like there's anything spiritual going on. So that's where they are. And they correspond to the phases of the moon. And what they call, even the demon of the moon is fool. Phul. So it shows you the system is totally cohesive. The next state is the magician. The person just gets the idea that there is a sixth sense, and that they can start thinking about things more with the spiritual component. The second stage, the next stage, hold on real quick, let me just look, and I can actually just talk this out really fast, and then they can let people see. It's not even really about these cards. It's just about the stages, because just like we talked about the Enneagram, there's only 9 different kinds of personalities, really, especially in this kind of world and how it's developed. It's almost like the same thing where there's only a certain amount of experiences, and then after that you become cosmic anyway. There's nothing that can stop you from being cosmic once you're fully aware of these kind of experiences. So And like it's basically identifying what kind of energy you need to solve yourself. Like if you're experiencing energy loss, which is like leaking blood, you need to know what can patch that. You see what I mean? So how this kind of works is that we see that the next stage is the High Priestess, because a person now has to learn from Earth. Earth is a priestess. It's not a harlot. Like people think, oh, the Babylonian whore, and that has something to do with Earth, and they get crazy with it, but that's not the truth. It's the Earth is the High Priestess initiate. And it has all these mysteries and these weird trees and these mushrooms and these other kind of gods hanging around to induct human beings into a higher state of consciousness that is godlike. And that's just what's going on. The next is the Empress, who actually shows, or the Queen, who actually shows a stronger nature of the feminine character by the sword, basically. That there is a certain level of how our world works that still, when it's your time to go, it's your time to go. No matter if you figured it out or if you didn't figure it out. Meaning that no one can just sit around and do what they want to do on Earth's time as the Empress. She carries the sword to show that she holds a little bit more strength than most people have, because she masters this matter. Then the initiates begin to start, the Hierophants, or the ones that you meet during the path that actually are able to give you knowledge about some of this going on. This is an important phase. This is whether it's David Icke or whoever it is, they play that card. Then comes somewhat of a split in the path, and they call it the Lovers, because at this point, a person has to then decide whether they're going to go with the positive side of their character or the negative side of their character. Now, the interesting part about this is that a person always makes the right choice. This is what negation does. It shows you, it goes beyond, oh, I made the bad choice when I came to the road. Look, there's no such thing, because what happens is if you go with, let's say, the positive side, the first negative thing that happens, you'll be right back to the negative side again. So if a person chooses the negative first, they generally go in there and learn tons of experiences so that when they finally choose this positive field, or the positive mate, they call this because it's still lovers, the positive nadi, or the energy that you're using primarily, then they can't be really encouraged to go and use it for something dark, because they already did the darkness. So then the next thing becomes the chariot. Figuring out that all this stuff is just simply to drive you and propel you across the cosmos. Generally, two Sphinx are driving that, because the Sphinx are always related to mysticism, the funkendating components, masculine and feminine, across our galaxy. So the reality is that you're not supposed to let that become your master. You're actually supposed to allow it to propel you across the galaxy. Next card then becomes strength, because the person begins to realize his strength. They show the lion there that love is actually stronger than being fierce. Like the more that you can love things, the more that it limits you. The more that it doesn't limit you from how many things you can experience on your progression to the being cosmos. Like when you can love the fly, it allows you to be the fly. And so this is the deeper level of mysteries that can't even be comprehended until you reach that level, because most people are like, well, why would I want to think that It's not that. If there's any limitations in your mind of something that you don't want to be, you can't be the cosmos. You could be somewhere else in here. So it keeps going, and it goes into the hermit. Like I said, the one who now knows that their power, and they think this gets to the point where they're keeping silent, that their power is so manifest that they don't have to show it to everyone. They've learned the wisdom behind not revealing all of their ability to everyone, which is a big stage in where their abilities increase. Because it's very important for you to understand that what you would do to an individual if you happen to walk through a wall in front of them, or you happen to move something around like a computer with your mind. You would not get what you thought you would get for that individual. You would actually breach what we call their hymen of spiritual experience premature, because they have not yet even gone on the path. They may most of the time be in the moonlight phases. So what that does is that puts them in a position of not understanding what you're doing and acting foolish with what you just showed them, telling other people, and so you can only imagine where this would get you. So Again, when you look through the stages, as you see with numbers, anytime you're in the earlier numbers have a lot more meaning than the later numbers. Like the number 9 has a lot more meaning at times than numbers 21. The number 1 has a lot more meaning than most of the numbers, and then the number 0 has more meaning than all the numbers. So but if you want to see further down into the path to see where things were maybe headed, then you have that opportunity to. And this was something that was already given to this earth. So what I'm into is I'm into truth, and I'm into revealing to people what's been here and why we don't understand what's going on and how it appears that we're so stagnant. And then that will move things. That's all a person owes the knowledge, is to just try it out and to test it and see if it actually will show you something or reveal something to you. What I mean by that is that all of this stuff that we're reading, all this stuff that we're looking at, we can tell when we're done whether it's benefited us or whether it's pulled us back. And the reality becomes that anything that's talking about duality is number 2. We either need to get to number 0 or number 3. So when you understand what that kind of knowledge means, it means that you actually are graduating through these steps. And so that's all I'm going to really add on today's show. I'm going to also, actually from the 404, did you have any more questions? I did notice that we had kept you on the line. Okay, it's highly possible that the 404 number had disconnected. So I just wanted to let everyone know that we're definitely going to be bringing out some more content. And that tab is available now. It's actually the tab that you'll see under the audio tab on the Resistance. You'll find another tab there called Premium Sound. There you'll find a lot of recordings. We're going to put some music in there and a lot of stuff for everyone to enjoy. I want to say wholeness and balanced vibrations to everyone, and thank you for calling in to the Universal Current.